Hey guys, welcome to this tutorial. My name's ThaTimster. Today I'm going to be going over how to add a ragdoll to your games in the Blender game engine. So the end result will look something like this. If I press play, you have a character and he'll fall like so. This tutorial idea was on the Reddit subforum and got a fair few amount of votes. So again, if you haven't already seen it, there's a link down in the description below. You can vote on your favorite tutorial ideas, and that will give me an indication of what sort of tutorials you guys want to see. So in this tutorial, we'll be going over how to create this physical representation of our player using rigid bodies and rigid body joints, and then we'll be going over how to set up the rig so that it sort of interacts with the motion and rotation of these rigid body pieces. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go File New, open up a new blend file. Now of course the first thing you'll do is Blender Game Engine, GLSL and animation frame rate of 60, X, delete the cube, Shift A, add a plane, S to scale, make it fairly large. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to add in our character. So for this tutorial I've used a character from BlendSwap. There's a link down in the description below if you want to go ahead and use it too. Otherwise feel free to use your own characters. So from here I'm going to go to File and then click Append. So here I have the file that I want to add, so I'm going to click on it and then go to Object and just press A to select everything and append from library. So now we're just going to get rid of all the stuff we don't need. So we need that, we don't need this, we don't need the rig, we don't need the camera either, we don't need this dot, and basically what we can do is just get rid of all of these parts. So easiest would just be select this, and then press H to hide, select this rig, H to hide, then press Z, go into wireframe, B, and just select all this sort of junk and just delete it. Alright, Alt H to unhide, and now we should be left with a rig and with a sort of player. So here I'm just going to quickly simplify the rig a bit because as you can see it's a little bit complex, especially for the fingers when we only have a few vertices to deal with. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go select it, go over into edit mode, then I'm going to press C to select, or you can press B. Basically what I want to do is select all of these bones because we don't need them, and then just X and delete. So I'm going to do that on the right side and it should mirror across to the left. I think that's a setup with the rig. You might also need to do it for your left side and delete those too. Then I'm going to select this and just numpad 7, numpad 5, and drag it out to the back just with G. Alright, then numpad 1. So here what I'm going to do is select this bone, X, and dissolve, and that should turn it into one bone. Now these shoulders here we don't really need, so I'm going to press X and delete bones. Alright, so now we should just have something that looks like this. I'm just going to straighten out the neck here. Just move it down so it fits proportionately, and then move the chest up. Okay, so it's sort of in the collarbone position. Just going to straighten it out. Now also on the feet here I'm going to select this, these two bones, X and delete, and also this last one, X and delete. Then I'm going to select the joint, move it down to the ankle, and move this out to the front. What we're basically doing is we want to keep this as simple as possible because every single bone that we have has to have a sort of rigid body joint associated with it. So if we have heaps and heaps of bones, then that not only means heaps of work setting it up, but it also means a fair bit of performance lost. So for ragdoll effects, you want to try and keep it fairly minimal how many bones and rigid body joints you have. So over here into solid view, so something like that is good. Now I'm going to press tab, go back into object mode. Then I'm going to select my mesh, and first of all what we need to do is get rid of everything else in the vertex groups. So here, delete all groups, modifier, get rid of that. So with the character selected, I'm going to hold down shift, select the rig, control P, and parent with automatic weights. Alright, and so now if we select it and we go over into pose mode, we should now be able to move stuff. If you want to, you can go and change things with the weight painting and make it look a bit nicer, but again that's up to you. So for this tutorial I'm just going to keep it fairly simple. Alright, so what we have to do now is we have to add our different joints for each of the parts of the player. So what we're going to do is we're going to press Shift A and add ourselves a cube. S to scale and just bring it up. So this here is going to be the torso of the player. So, or the stomach, let's call it stomach. And then we're just going to move this down slightly, and then SZ, scale it up on the Z axis, and just scale it in a bit. Alright, something like that. Then I'm going to go over here to the physics, select rigid body, turn off actor, and then in the collision bounds here we can just select box because it's a cube. So if you want to make other shapes that suit your player better, then feel free and just choose convex hull, but otherwise for this tutorial we're just going to be using box. Alright, so something like this is good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to press Shift D to duplicate and then GZ and move it up. Alright, SZ, scale it on the Z axis. This is going to be the chest here, and we're just going to scale it up as this has to represent sort of this whole bone. So what we're basically doing is we have to sort of reduplicate the bones as a physical representation. So this bone here in the middle, this one right here, is going to be represented by this main cube, and then the one above it is going to be represented by this cube here. So you sort of want to scale them similarly to the other bones, but also you want to leave a bit of gap. So before we do anything else, over in the physics here, choose the margin and set it to something like 0.01, and do that for both, just so we don't get weird collisions. Then with the chest here, I'm going to go to the constraints, add myself a rigid body joint, and then here as a target I'm going to choose the stomach, and here we're going to choose as a hinge, and then display pivot. Now I'm also going to select both of these, press Ctrl A and apply scale. So if we select our main player mesh and go over physics, make it no collision, then go over into texture view and press play, you'll see that our sort of physical representation falls down like so. And you notice that this one is attached to the one underneath. However, you notice there isn't much rotation, and the reason for that is that our constraint here is sort of showing us that the point of rotation is actually in the middle, which we don't want. So back in the constraints here, let's go ahead and in our pivot, go ahead and move it down, maybe minus 0.2 units. And now you'll see that the sort of origin, or the center of this rotation, is now further down. So if you press play, you'll notice it sort of moves a lot more. Now what I'm going to do is press Shift D to duplicate, GZ, and then S to scale, and this next one is going to be the neck, and so delete that, S to scale, numpad 1, and then Z to go into wireframe, and this is just going to represent the bone in here. So what's very important is you have to make sure there's a gap between this one and between this one. Otherwise you'll run into physical glitching issues. So what we want to do here is move it forward a bit so it represents a player a bit better. And also with this chest piece here we can scale it in a bit so it suits the player a bit better as well. Same with the stomach. And then apply the scale to both. We're also going to select the neck and Ctrl A, apply scale. Now you'll notice the pivot for this one is really far down, so we're just going to go ahead and move it up. Just below there, so I'm going to say negative 0.05, and something like that should be fine. Then I'm going to press Shift D, duplicate, another one up here, S to scale, and this is going to represent the head. So SX, maybe solid view so we can see what we're doing, GY, SY. Alright, so that seems good. Again, numpad 1 and wireframe, make sure you have a gap. Then Ctrl A and apply scale, and here we can again move it down, so maybe, yeah, negative 0.15, or maybe if you wanted to, negative 0.175, so it's right down there. Now also what you can do is you can go on the physics here and you can set the mass. So the mass of the head is probably quite heavy, whereas the mass of the neck probably isn't. So maybe we can set this to 0.5. And then maybe this one here to 0.8, and then the chest obviously can be a bit more heavy, and so can the stomach. So again, up to you if you want to assign those weights, but it will have an impact on how your ragdoll reacts. So now what we also have to do is we have to reassign the targets here. So selecting the neck, we'll go over here to the rigid body, and then from here choose chest. And this one here, we're going to choose neck. So basically for this one you want to select the previous one, and for this one you want to select the previous one, until we have sort of a chain that goes all the way down to the main object. So now if we go into text view and press play, you'll see we have a almost working rig. Now if you want to, maybe that's a bit much movement, so I'm going to make sure that this is the x-axis. I'm going to click limit 0. Okay, so we're given a maximum. It looks fairly good, but what I might do is turn this down to something like 40. So it's not too obvious, maybe even 20. Something like that looks good though. You can see his chin would almost be hitting his chest there. Alright, so that seems good. I'm happy with that. Now what we're going to do is we'll keep going with the other objects. So here with this chest, I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate GX, move it over here, S to scale, then numpad 1, Z to go into wireframe, move it in the center of the bone, so something like this, then SX, and we'll just move it out. Then SZ and scale it on the Z axis all the way to the middle here. Then the same as before, we're going to change this origin of rotation. So first of all, as a target we want to choose the chest, and we need to also rename this. So this is going to be the left forearm, or left upper arm. So I'm going to call it upper arm left, and then we'll also make sure it's in the right position, numpad 7. Go into solid view and just move it across, rotate it a bit. Okay. Now here you have to be very careful because you notice it gets very close to the other one. So just make sure that they're not connected, otherwise you'll get some glitches. If you do have any problems with it, just S, X, and X again. So double tap X, and then just scale it down a bit. So rather have a bit too much room than not enough. Okay, so with this selected, I'm going to press Ctrl A, apply scale. Then we'll go over into the constraints. And from our display pivot, I'm going to select 0, and then on the X we're going to add -0.2. So that origin point seems to be fairly good. We might want to move it slightly across though, so -1.19. So something like that should be fine. Alright, numpad 1, and then Shift D to duplicate, move it across, add another one, S double tap X. Okay, numpad 7, GY, and move it across, double tap X again, and there we go. So again, the origin seems to be fairly good. We're also going to rename it to forearm, and then also down here, delete the .001, and we're going to put it as left. Alright, so that seems fine. I'm going to press Shift D, duplicate again, S to scale, and we'll just do one for the hand bone. So SX, GY, GX. Okay. So somehow that seems good. If you have a mesh that is fairly wide, for example pieces sticking out, you want this to sort of cover most of it. So if you can, maybe make it a little bit too big, rather than making it too small. Okay, so that seems good. Again, Control A, apply scale, and same for this one if we haven't already, and maybe move this a bit, so -0.2. This one here we can maybe make -0.1, maybe a little bit more, -0.11. Alright, now what we have to do here is, first of all, on the arm, we're going to actually select a ball as the movement. And on this one here, we will select hinge, but you'll notice for the limits here, we only have the y-axis to deal with. We don't have the x. So what we have to do is move this round so that we can limit the x angle and limit how much it moves. So in the axes here, I'm going to select 90, and that will just rotate it. So here we have the x-axis, then I can use my angle limits, and then from here we can do something like 90 and -90. Okay, and then the same goes here for the hand. Again, we only have y, but we want to limit. We don't want it twisting around this axis because that doesn't look very nice. So here again we're going to go to -90 and 90. Then also rotate the Z by 90. Okay, so quickly test it out. It seems good so far. There's some problem with the rotation, as you'll notice. So selecting this one here, the target is still chest, but we want it to be the upper arm. And this one here, we want it to be the forearm. So type in forearm, and our name here should be hand left. Okay, so that should look something like that, which looks fine. So for the other side, I'm going to select our main pieces here, then Shift D to duplicate, GX, and just Control M and then X to mirror it on the X-axis, numpad 7. Move it over here, select individual origins, R to rotate, and move it there. Alright, so that seems good. Numpad 1. Wireframe, and we want to get this distance even, so GX, something like that seems good. So now all we need to do is change the name. So this is going to be upper arm right, this one here is going to be forearm right, and that's going to be hand right. Okay, so now play, and there we go. Seems good. Okay, now we'll just focus on the legs, and then we can start getting the rig going. So I'm going to select the chest here, Shift D to duplicate, GZ, then S Shift Z, scale it on X and Y, then numpad 1, and then move it over here, R to rotate, S Z and Z again, move it over here. Alright, that seems good. Z to go into wireframe, and then we'll do it again, just so we are covering most of the bone. So numpad 3, and just make sure it's suited the rotation of it. So now what we're also going to do is we're going to flip the direction of the box to suit the direction of the bone. As you notice, the bone starts here and goes downwards, but our box is facing upwards. So what we need to do is we need to press R, X, X again, then 180, and that will just spin it round. So it looks something like that, and we have our pivot at the top. Alright, so you just want to make sure that it matches the bone orientation, otherwise you might end up with weird glitches when you try get the rig going later. So here what we're going to do is we'll go press Control A, apply scale, and that joint seems fairly accurate, so I'm just going to leave it. Then I'm going to press numpad 1, Shift D to duplicate, add another one. Okay, so we have something that is roughly matching the bone. Now what we're going to do is we are going to press Control A, apply scale, again, like last time. There is a problem, and you notice it's sort of going through the floor here. So we're actually going to scale it up. So SZ, Z again, and then G double tap Z, and we'll just move it up because we'll have a separate sort of collision for the foot. Okay. So Control A, apply scale again, and we might need to move that down a bit. So constraints, and here -0.15, or maybe -0.175. Then again Shift D to duplicate, GZ. And then we're going to again apply the scale. So I'm going to move this sort of hinge up a bit further. So on the y-axis, maybe we'll make it 0.05, and then bring it this way a bit, so maybe -0.15, and there we go. Alright, so now we just need to deal with the targets. So this one here is going to be targeted to the stomach, this one here is going to be targeted to this one, which we still need to rename. So let's call this thigh, thigh left, and this one here can be the calf muscle, and this one here can be the foot. And now what we can do is this one in the constraints we can tie to the thigh, and this one here we can tie to the calf muscle. Back into texture view and let's try it out. So seems to be working pretty well. So on the thigh here I'm going to change it to negative 0.225, move it up. Okay, that seems good. Now one thing we forgot to do is for this side here we have to apply the scale. So let's select all these objects here, Control A, and apply scale. Now you'll notice the pivots here have moved completely, so let's update those. Make that 0.11. Basically just the opposite, so 0.2, and this one here can be 0.19. Now one more thing I will do is on here, on our calf muscle, we need to limit how much it rotates because the leg isn't going to be rotating forwards. So what I'm going to do here is in the limits, check limits, negative 20, and let's make this one 0. Just see how it goes. Okay, so I think that worked because the leg wasn't bending forwards. Let's just turn it off and see what happens. Okay, yep, so that shouldn't happen. So if we select this now, it does limit it, which is good. Then on our maximum here, maybe we can set it to something like 40, so we can get a good amount of rotation in. So now what we're going to do is select all our parts here, and then press Shift D to duplicate, GX, and again Control M to mirror, and then X on the X-axis. Alright, so again, let's select all of these and Control A, apply scale. Just make sure everything is fine. So it seems good. Now, we just need to rename these to thigh right, and this one here to calf right, and this one here to foot right. Then I'm going to select the plane, this one here, and just move it down. Select our lamp here, choose Hemi, maybe 0.7. Actually, let's just make a sun, so we can have shadows. Shift D to duplicate, add a Hemi, and make this a blue color. Alright, so now if we press play, we have a falling ragdoll. So we're going to select this, go into the constraints, and maybe move it down even further. So negative 0.075. Try that out. Okay, that seems a little bit better. And then also for the constraint for the head here, we can maybe move it up to negative 0.15. So it has a bit more leverage to it. Alright, so that seems a bit more realistic. Cool, seems good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to sort of parent our rig here to each of the bones. So I'm going to start on the right side here. So I'm going to select this, the right hand, Shift S, cursor to selected, then select the rig, so maybe just up here, select the rig, go into edit mode, and then select this bone, Shift S, selection to cursor. Now you'll notice the other one here follows it, so I'm going to press Ctrl Z to undo. And then before we do that, I'm going to select this, then press Alt P, and we're going to clear the parent. And that will just get rid of it, so now this is separate. Then Shift S, selection to cursor, be down here, go to individual, and then RZ90. And so now, what we can do is to this bone here, we can add some constraints so that it follows this rigid body joint. So with it selected, let's go into pose mode, select it right here, go into bone constraints, choose copy location, copy rotation, and then for this one here, we're going to choose hand left, and this one here is going to be hand left as well. Now when you choose the rotation, you might notice something weird. So for example, if we turn it on and off here and hide this, you'll notice it sort of screws up a bit. So what we have to do is we have to select our bone here, press Ctrl A and apply pose as rest pose, and that will just clean it out. Okay, so back to object mode, and now that should work. So if we go into our game logic and And on our rig here, we add an always. On true, armature, run armature, select it. And now if we go into texture view, so now if we press play, you'll notice that the sort of mesh of the hand follows the one of the rigid body. So now all we need to do is do the same for all the other bones. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the next couple ones, and then I'll probably just sort of time lapse through the rest. So for the second one here, we'll select the main body, Shift S, cursor to selected, then we're going to select the bone or the rig, and then we'll go into edit mode, select the bone, Alt P, clear the parent, and then we'll press Shift S, selection to cursor, and then RZ90. Enter. Also what we can do is if we press N and then have our bone selected, we can choose a roll of 0, and that will just ensure that nothing weird is happening. So now I'm going to go into pose mode, and we're going to select our bone. Again, 2 bone constraints, rotation and location. This time it's going to be forearm left, and again forearm left here. Alright, so select this, H to hide, select this one, and just make sure that rotation isn't doing anything weird. If it is changing it, just Control A and apply as rest pose. Okay, so that one done. Now to the next one. Now, one thing I did forget to mention is for the feet here, you'll notice we've rotated the sort of bone part completely. What we also have to do is we also have to apply the rotation. So to do that, again, apply rotation here, and then that should correct any weird rotations that your bones are getting. So once it's corrected, again, Control A and apply pose as rest pose, and that should sort itself out. If you want to, you can also do the same for these ones here. Now you'll notice one thing when we press play, the legs sort of fall apart. So I think the reason for that is when we applied the rotation, the pivots sort of just switched. So we're going to change this again to 0.225. Move this one to rotate from the top. Same for this one here, 0.225. Basically just making it positive instead of negative, so it's not too hard. 0.175. This one here can be 0.15. Same for this one. 0.175 for this. And the top one here can be 0.225, which it already is. So there we go. So now if we press play, then that's looking a bit better. Okay. So at the moment his head seems very heavy. So we might even need to turn down the weight on that to 0.5 or something. There we go. So the rest of the body sort of plays a bit of a part as well. Okay, So basically we have the main frame working. Now what we need to do is we need to hide all these objects from the actual game while it's playing. So an easy way to do that is just in here, click and hold, and then just drag up, and it will deselect all of the different parts. So we want to do this for all of them except for the armature, and we also want to have camera and lamp, and also the plane. But everything else we want to be invisible. So this render button here is pretty much the same as clicking invisible here, so it just removes it from being in the game. So now if you press play, we just have our set character falling over like so. Now if you press play, you'll notice there is a problem with the neck, how it sort of detached itself. So we're going to select the model here, and you notice there's sort of two different meshes. So I'm just going to go ahead and merge the neck and the sort of middle part together, so it doesn't do that. Up to you, you don't have to do that. Your mesh might not have this problem, so this is sort of just specific to this character mesh, but overall most of the time it shouldn't affect it. You can also fix this by doing weight painting instead, and that will just go ahead and sort of change how much moves at each time. And if you really wanted to, you can make the other side move just as much. Alright, so there we go. The neck problem isn't fully gone, but you don't see through it, which I guess is a bit better. Now, one more thing that I sort of find quite useful is especially for the vulnerable edges of a character, such as the hands and feet, which sort of get caught in walls. What I usually do for those is I increase the collision bounds maybe to 0.04, or increase them fairly high just to ensure that they don't get caught in anything. So that could be doors or walls or anything it hits in high velocity. So you just want to ensure that it doesn't get stuck, as that doesn't look too good. Okay, so that's looking a lot better in regards to glitchiness. I think that's pretty much it though, so if we duplicate it, we should be able to get the same effect going nicely. Now also one cool thing that you can do is you can select any of these parts, go to the physics, and choose static, and then press play, and it will sort of be suspended by that one part. So the rest of it will still be rigid body, but then that one part that you've selected will be holding it all up. So for example, if I select the foot here, and we go to static, and then press play, you'll notice the whole character falls, but he's sort of been stuck by his foot. Now in regards to spawning in the ragdolls, it's fairly complex. You'll have to sort of reset up the constraint targets and everything else as you spawn in each separate rigid body item. So there is lots of resources and examples of people doing it and stuff online if you really want to go ahead and look into it, but just for the purpose of this tutorial I wanted to keep it fairly simple. So there we go guys, that's the end of this tutorial. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to leave a like, comment or share down below. All of that stuff is greatly appreciated. If your one didn't work out or something went wrong, there'll be a finished op blend down in the description below as always, so feel free to check that out and see what the differences are. But apart from that, hope you enjoyed the video, have an awesome week, and I'll see you guys in the next one.